Okay, this is part 2. First part I told you I would show you the signature, the date. And if you're looking at the top of this paper, I'm trying to get it. Hopefully it's not a reverse. But it says reason for affiant's belief that the property sought on this subject's premise. And I didn't read that right. Let me read that right. Reason for affiant's belief that the property sought is on the subject's premise. Now, the reason they got here, and I got it highlighted, so I'll read it out to you. They had the wrong address first off, but that's a technicality to always remember when they got the wrong address. As long as somewhere else on the warrant, on the affidavit before the warrant, they can describe how to get to the residence. That's how they get around the scrivener's error. That's what they call that. But let me get to the meat of this. The one reason, and I say one because that's all they had, a number one. And number one reason they said, the North Charleston Police Department's narcotics unit utilized a confidential informant to purchase an illicit substance from this residence. The confidential informant was escorted to this location by an undercover detective. Notice what I said now. Let me read that again. The confidential informant was escorted to this location by an undercover detective. Not an undercover detective making a buy, a confidential informant. Now, when you say confidential informant, that means in the same, because they already jumped to the conclusion. So nowhere in this reason did they show the reliability of this confidential informant, which by federal law, not only state law, federal law, that is a major requirement to give the judge the power to sign a warrant. Without that, the judge had no authority to sign this warrant. He would only be doing a rubber stamp, doing a favor for the police, which that's against the laws of canon for a judge. And then let me put a clear wave out. I'm not a judge. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm smart enough to do my due diligence and read up on this. I did this after the fact. Had I knew this before, I probably would have never went to prison. Trusted in lawyers, and they played me. So I'm doing this for people who going up against the same thing. Always do your due diligence. Know before you put your life in somebody else's hand. Now, let me get back. Okay, once on the scene, the CI exited the vehicle and made contact with the subject of this residence. The illicit substance was obtained in exchange for pre-recorded currency. Again, nowhere throughout the 5-6 pages of this warrant is there any pre-recorded, which would be a Xerox copy of it with the serial numbers. Even if they didn't retrieve it, it's still supposed to have been on file. The denomination of bills, when they say pre-recorded, they say actually saying in exchange for pre-recorded U.S. currency. So it should have been an amount there, denomination of bills that they use, and a copy of them in the warrant. This does not accompany the warrant. That was also needed to give the judge authority to sign this, but it's not included. Okay. At the conclusion of this transaction, the illicit substance was turned over to the undercover detective. The substance field tested presumptively, I'm saying that wrong, presumptively for an illicit drugs and was placed in evidence. Now, anytime you're dealing with a confidential informant, it's always supposed to be a secondary officer backing the main undercover officer, because he must check the vehicle that the officer enters, check the CI, check the vehicle upon going to make the transaction and coming back to make sure there was no foul play. And it's supposed to be recorded. Without this information and the judge signing this warrant, that means, again, he could only be a rubber stamp. And look up rubber stamp when look up laws of canon for a judge. Get your Black's Law Dictionary. Make sure you got one in your possession, but look up what rubber stamping is. You know, and that's what this judge, I won't say the judge's name, but that was what was done here. Now, that right there alone was enough should have been enough for my case to be overturned and ever made it past the preliminary hearing. But my lawyer, the first lawyer, I won't say his name at this time on this tape, he was running for mayor. So y'all figure it out. If you're from South Carolina and Charleston, 2013, 2014, 2015, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But I'm going on to part 3 to show y'all what problems I encountered after I established it with all my attorneys after I found out what happened.